Greetings everyone, my name is Etterville, and welcome to my Let's Try of the Kickstarter demo of Fight Night, a retro-styled hybrid first-person dungeon crawler and fast-paced brawler, in development by Sourcerobe. I'll be spending at least 30 minutes on this title, providing my thoughts along the way. As usual, I will be leaving links to the demo, Kickstarter page, and other relevant sites in the description below. This game has garnered quite a bit of attention, as the devs managed to smash through their Kickstarter goal of 10 grand. At the time of this recording, the devs have managed to raise almost $28,000, and there's still over 3 weeks left to go in the campaign. Before I begin, let me show off the options menu. I strongly suggest that you alter the camera, roll, bob, and zoom options, or lower them, especially if you're kind of motion sick. As if they're too high, you can get rather disoriented during gameplay, and trust me, the game can get quite fast paced. So much so that it caused some issues when trying to record it initially. Show HUD hard, this shows the HUD hard at the bottom. Data resolution controls how high the resolution of the game is. After all, this is 8-bit / retro stylized, and it follows the old computer game style of dithering the resolution so to increase how well it looks. I'll be playing it at max data resolution, of course, sound effects and volume, and eventually you'll be able to change the input bindings as well as the difficulty options. And erase save data is as obvious what it does. You need to press the OK 3 times or the punch button in order to do so. So let's begin a new game. So we begin with Fight Night just waking up from his slumber. As you saw in the introduction, an evil tower ascended from a town, and Fight Night is there to challenge whatever's in the tower, and he seems to have a vendetta against the evil overlord at the top. Now, I will be using the keyboard in order to play this game, but you can also just use the controller if you really want to. So WASD to move, or you can use the arrow keys, W and S to move forwards and backwards, same with up and down arrow keys, and left arrow key and right arrow key, or A and D in order to rotate left and right. You can press Q and E in order to sidestep left and right as well. And we press spacebar to open doors, or rather we punch open doors and completely break them on the floor. Yeah, in this game we interact with NPCs and enemies by just punching them and by using our fingers. Hopefully in the final game we'll have more means of interacting with enemies, or rather NPCs other than punching them. So here's our friend Captain Cooke, who acts like an innkeeper and a tutorial guide initially. So we've embarked and docked at the town which has this evil tower. So before we go into the tower, it's time for a quick tutorial with Captain Cooke, aka sparring match. So this will introduce us to the second half of the game, the brawling portion. Now, combat takes place on 2 lanes, the left lane and the right lane. We can move between them by pressing the left and right keys. And in order to take some swings against enemies, we press the spacebar. And the more we attack enemies, the more rapidly we can hit them, or which are punches, as long as you keep a quick sustained amount of blows. And we can block attacks by pressing the shift key. We can hold block by pressing down the shift key and holding it down. Now if we hold down our block just before or way before an enemy attacks, we'll take some damage or it'll be reduced. But if we press shift just as the enemy attacks, aka when they go golden, we'll parry their blows, which means that we can temporarily stun them and deals quite a bit of damage. And of course we can dodge out of the way by pressing the back button, and sometimes it's really necessary with large groups of foes. First, what we're saying is to get out of the way and do a dodge punch, basically, a mid-dodge punch. If I can do it right. I need to dodge towards the wall and do mid-dodge punch. Like that. There we go, it takes a little bit of time, but you can get used to it. And the last set of things are specialties, aka special attacks. Hold control to open them, and we have a choice of 2 options, 100-inch punch and Start-Eyed Special. Each of them has their own unique tactics. Let's try Start-Eyed Special. In this one, you basically throw out a lot of flurry of punches until the enemy either dies or you run out of moves. But alas, we took care of the tutorial, so we're off to the town itself. And of course, throughout the game you can acquire new specialties and use them and replace them, because each specialty has their own unique techniques which make them better against certain enemy configurations or certain enemies. But alas, it's time to disembark from the boat and visit the town. Unfortunately, the town is deserted because the evil tower has risen up from the grave, or from the bottom, or from wherever, and so everyone has been kidnapped or killed. And we can press shift in order to see the map of the town as well. And the map will be filled in as we explore more and more of the area. And of course, this follows the old dungeon crawling classic trends, so we can only move in 90-degree increments. We don't really have free look. I wonder how much property damage we're doing by destroying all of these doors though. Then again, whenever I exit and re-enter the dungeon or boat, the doors are repaired after all, so maybe they're magical. So we have a water wheel, and we have this lighthouse, which isn't of use right now because we don't have anyone else who we can rescue, but it does provide a nice vantage point of this entire region, as well as with the evil tower right up ahead. So let's move on forward. So we have nothing else to do other than talking with this town guard. So yeah, the accursed tower, just like I said, has kidnapped all of the people, or rather the monsters coming out of the accursed tower. And yeah, it is a good idea for the others to escape after all. When the monsters come about, we have a skelly. So let's let this night watchman deal with this skeleton. Unfortunately, he easily got defeated or dispatched by the skeleton, so we're going to take his blade. But unfortunately, as we wield his sword, it immediately shatters. Yeah, we're apparently as cursed as a tower, because anytime Fight Night wields a weapon, it'll immediately get destroyed. Apparently, or I think it's implied that the evil overlord at the top of the tower is similar as cursed Fight Night, so he cannot bear any arms. So it's up to him and his fists in order to deal with these foes. So here's our first official battle in the game, the Skelly. Skellies are the easiest enemies to deal with, mainly because as you punch them they're immediately stunned, so you don't need to worry about counterattacks as long as you keep a flurry of blows going on. And we'll never see this guard again. I presume he either ran away to a secret part of the town, or he jumped onto the boat. Also, and that was a really important note, resting up at the end, or the free boat over here, it'll save your progress. Because if you die in a dungeon or elsewhere, you lose all the progress up until you last saved, so the punishment can be rather severe. So make sure to save often or after you make a lot of progress. On the left and right, on the left we have the alchemist shop, which we can't use right now because the alchemist is kidnapped, and on the right is the library, which you can't use either because the librarian has been kidnapped. Alas, it's time to enter this dungeon. And we're immediately attacked by a bone defender, or rather skelly. Yeah, each configuration of enemies and parties, they have their own unique setting or wrestling match introduction, which we'll be seeing several of them throughout this run. So let's move onward. But of course our pathway is mostly blocked by all these waterfalls, unfortunately. And in order to access new grates, we need to punch open all of these punch blocks. Or rather, punch these punch blocks, which will essentially it'll turn off of these waterfalls. As I'll demonstrate right over here. By doing so, I disabled all of these waterfalls on this side. My main goal is to access the middle pathway of this flooded aqueducts. But in order to do so, I need to explore all this region and open up all these punch blocks. Here's another party configuration, Pro Bonus, which consists of 2 armored skeletons, which are the tougher versions of the skeleton enemies we faced before. Essentially, they have shields so they can block your shots, so you can't stun them as easy as before. The only way you can really stun them is by parrying their blows. So this is the first encounter where you need to worry about parrying blows. In fact, I would say that armor skeletons are one of the more annoying enemy types, or strongest enemy types in this demo, at least on the first floor. especially when combined with other enemies. Trying to fight 2 armored skeletons at once can be a kind of a problem. You'll have to try parrying both their blows at the same time, and if they stagger their attacks, parrying their blows is quite challenging. In fact, it's easier to just dodge out of the way, and I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to take the safe route and just dodge the blows as much as possible. Feel no shame for just starting out by dodging enemy blows, and then moving on to parrying. After all, you can just use hit and run tactics by dodging out of the way and do mid-dodge punches. And over here we've rescued the alchemist, who by rescuing them they give us a hardy potion which will give us 15 HP over time. However, healing ends if I take damage, aka it feels more like a regen potion rather than a health potion. Xylobone Trio, aka we need to fight 3 of them at once. For this one I'm going to use 100-inch punch. Essentially the way 100-inch punch works is that we punch enemies or skellies right into each other. So if you punch them hard enough you can effectively kill multiple skellies at once. However, it'll work much better when we have a longer rows of foes, like instead of 2 or 3 we have 5 or 6. Alright, that should deactivate the first of the waterfalls that I need in order to access the boss. Another Xylobone Trio. Also, another nice thing about this game is that you can actually block shots or parry blows from other rows as well, not just the row you're on. Or combat lane, I mean. But be careful though, as you saw with the armored skeletons, it's not always easy to parry blows from multiple lanes. Maybe in the final game we'll have more than 2 lanes that we have to fight. But then it'll become a lot more challenging because even in this game you can fight a lot more than 3 rows of enemies, and it can get quite challenging with enemies because enemies can also attack you from back rows, specifically ranged enemies. Like for example, here's a good demonstration: lizard wizards. You can attack you from the back row, but you can actually parry their fireballs and send the fireballs back at them. Just make sure to parry their blows because otherwise you'll take quite a bit of damage. And of course, every time you defeat enemies, you actually collect some items or ingredients. Right now in the demo they don't actually do anything, they're just a kill tally. But in the final game they will be used for ingredients and unlocking new stuff. Many new potions. But be careful, the lizard wizard fireballs can deal a lot of damage, especially if you're not guarding. Another Xylobone Trio. Let me see if I can do this 100-inch punch better. See, as you can see over there, I launched that skeleton way back. Let's see how much damage I dealt to it. Yeah, I almost killed off the skelly. I suppose in the final game when we get some upgrades, I'll be able to deal a lot more damage and just instigate them or something. We're back in the basement layers. For the first, there will be 8 zones in the final game, but in this demo we only have access to 2 zones. Floors 0 and 1 take care of the flooded aqueduct, and floors 2 and 3 take care of some deserts and whatnot. Okay, now we have to face 4 enemies at once. The Star Knight special works better for individual very tough foes, whereas the 100-inch punch works better for enemies in large amounts of rows. Or for enemies with a long amount of... Or the 100-inch punch works better for if there are a lot of rows of enemies that we have to face at once. I gotta be careful though, because if I die I'm sent right back to the last save point. So I'm gonna drink this hardy potion right now and get as much health back as possible. Be warned though, you only gain 1 health back per step. And in this demo, from what I've played, there is no way to upgrade your health or strength. The only upgrades you get are based off of, well, the amount of potion slots you can get and what potions you have access to, as well as specialties. And one obvious compliment I have about this demo, or at least the combat, is it's really visceral. It's really fast-paced, and it's really easy to juggle multiple enemies at once. And the enemy encounters are very varied, and they can get quite difficult if you're not careful. But there's always a lot of skill involved with fighting them, so it's always so satisfying if you get a no-damage run. It's always fun to just punch all these foes and easily just make minced meat out of them and stun them. I suppose it'll get even better when we get more upgrades. Let me try 100-inch punch again. But of course, 100-inch punch will be much better if I can actually stun, if I can actually get 5 bars in at once. There's the other punch block. I'm going to traverse to this side and see if I can I need to open up the waterfall on the other side, so I need to traverse to there. Waterhole 4. Once again, I really like the different types of enemy configuration names that they have. It really adds to the flavor text of this game. Or the flavor this game has. Because it isn't the you don't normally see that many brawler games, especially first-person brawler games. This kind of reminds me of the demo of Gone with the Demon, which is also another first-person brawler game, or rather first-person fighting game, but that one borrows a lot more from Soulsborne titles. This one feels more like an arcadey brawler type game. And I kind of like this more compared to that one because of the fast-paced brawler action. I would say that the highlight of this game is the brawling action, because the dungeon crawling can get a little bit monotonous over time, if you were to ask for my honest opinion. But I do like how just before each match we actually have that wrestling match or boxing ring with the boxing ring bell to indicate when the battles are going to begin. It's quite a nice touch, and it adds a bit of flavor to the game. I would like if the map actually the map was a little bit more broad, and when you explore the room, the areas that you've seen were filled into the map, instead of having to walk into most of the rooms in order to actually fill them in. This links up to this route, but in order to access the other side, I need to enter a stairwell from the other side. So let's talk with this librarian. And remember the Minotaur for later. We'll be experiencing it soon enough. In order to recruit the librarian, we need to collect all those 3 scrolls that are dropped throughout this dungeon. We already collect 2 of 3 of them, so we have 1 more that's somewhere. Before I go back and explore the rest of this dungeon, I'm going to rest up so I don't lose my progress upon dying. The other reason is of course because I want to visit the alchemist and restock on potion. Or rather, as it's called, elixirs. We can acquire new elixirs for free, at least in this demo. Maybe in the final game we won't be able to acquire elixirs for free. And we can also return excess elixirs or ones we don't like, and we can talk about various things, and show the alchemist for various items which will allow us to get certain upgrades or potion. So I'm going to be acquiring a hardy potion, and a super smelly artifact, which essentially acts like an auto revive potion, which will revive us if we fall to 0 health, but it'll only restore 6 health, compared to the 12 health that we'll get if we use the hardy potion, or 15 health I mean. So it's a risk-reward thing, but I will keep it there as for insurance. So let's rest up at this boat. We can also change up our specialties, show him items to get new specialties, and of course go on a sparring match, which I will demonstrate right now. The sparring match is against 4 regular skeletons, and you can use it to brush up on your fighting skills, as well as test out each of your specialties. Oh, I really screwed that up over there. And all the damage you accrue in the sparring matches, it does carry on throughout through the dungeon and outside in the world. But your focus meter on the bottom, sorry about that, I forgot to explain, At the bottom we have our health bar, and at the top we have that, well, specialty bar. When each chunk of those bars, or each segment of the bar fills, that means you can use another specialty. In the final game, I suppose you will be able to upgrade your health as well as your max number of specialty charges, as well as how much damage you do, because I know on the Kickstarter page they mentioned that you will be able to collect stuff like gauntlets with various stats. And we took care of that lizard wizard. There is one more enemy type we haven't seen yet, but we'll be facing it in floor 0. Or floor 1 if the random generation or random enemies pop up, actually. Yeah, as I said, the dungeon crawling can be rather monotonous because it's really just exploring these areas. The main meat and fun part of the gameplay is the brawler action. I suppose in the final game I would like to see an arena mode or gauntlet mode added, where you face increasingly tough hordes of enemies and see how long you can last, preferably for rewards or something else. Okay, here's the other enemy type I was talking about, bomb gobos. They can drop bombs which will explode onto enemies. Of course you can just launch them back at the bomb gobos themselves, which will deal quite a bit of damage. But of course you can also leave the bombs over there and harm a lot larger groups of foes at once. So there is that for that use. Also, if you see any suspicious wall, make sure to punch it. Punching is a free action after all. And thankfully, most enemies actually just get stunned as you keep wailing on them. The only enemies who don't get stunned as you completely use your brawling action of them or your flurry of punches are the armed skeletons. At least in the first 2 floors. And we found a little potion kiddo. By returning this rascal back to town, we can essentially upgrade the max number of potion slots we have on our person. Really, I'm just trying to fill in the map and trying to find a stairwell upwards so I can get to the exit. Okay, there's the stairwell upwards. Let's see if it leads to where I hope it does. Okay, I think it is. Okay, there it is. There, now I'm able to access the end of this floor. But there's still some stuff I haven't punched yet, so I'll delay from going to the next floor just for a little bit. So let me just go back down the stairwell. And backtrack a little bit so I can access the lower right. I do like how as we punch those waterfalls out, we can actually... Oh, Bone Zone. Nice reference there. I do like how as we open up more of these waterfalls, we have a shortcut so we can more easily access the pre-existing areas. So it makes backtracking a lot easier. I suppose this will hold true in the other dungeons. Or the other areas specifically. And if we do a mid-dodge punch just at the right time, we can deal a lot more damage for a counterattack or dodge and weave punch. I don't think there is a reward for doing 100% completion of each map, but I suppose it would be nice if it was added some way to increase incentivization for exploring all these dungeons. Then again, you already get quite a bit of incentive because of all the upgrades. But I suppose as more upgrades are added throughout the game, you'll see a lot more use of it. Okay, here's a demonstration of the bomb. As you saw over there, this took care of both of those bomb gobos, as well as that wizard. Well, maybe not the bomb gobbo, but at least took care of that lizard wizard. Okay, let's see where this leads up to. Gobbo droppings. Basically, we have to fight 4 bomb gobos at once. Once again, I really like the flavor text of facing all the different enemy configurations and patterns. Really adds more flavor to the game and makes it more memorable, basically. Really, the retro-styled aesthetics with the dithering and whatnot kind of reminds me somewhat CGA graphics, or VGA graphics maybe, somewhere between, it's probably VGA, I mean. It kind of reminds me of that, as well as a few other retro-styled games, but it's more distinct compared to the other 8-bit titles I've seen, because those try mimicking the NES-styled 8-bit, but this one kind of reminds me of the old 8-bit style of dithering and other stuff of old computers. So it does make it distinct in that regard. Really, the uncommon combination of this game, combining the dungeon crawling action, the retro aesthetics, and well, the dungeon brawling. We don't really see that many first-person brawlers. In fact, it really makes it memorable in my own eyes, and I think that's why a lot of other people supported the Kickstarter as well. I really like how easily you can switch between rows and easily just juggle foes, but I suppose the game will get a lot more challenging as we fight more and more enemies. There should be something over here I'm missing, because there is one scroll I haven't picked up yet. Grave robbers. Kind of funny considering we have a bomb unit and we have a skeleton. Okay, here's another enemy type I forgot to mention. We also have the skelly gobos. Or bone gobos, I mean. These can summon skellies, which makes them quite annoying and dangerous. Thankfully they can't summon armed skeletons, because if they did, they would be a lot more dangerous. They're essentially our enemy summoner for this game, or at least for this first floor. Thankfully they're easily stunned like most other foes, so I'm not too worried. Once again, hit-and-run tactics are possible at least in the first zone. I suppose this is necessary so that players can get their feet wet. Skilled players can easily just trounce the first and maybe second zone with all the parries and the more careful dodging. But for less skilled players, there's a lot more leniency and they can just use dodging and weaving and hit-and-run tactics in order to get used to the game. Plus, most enemies don't deal that much damage, so you can... well, there's a lot more leniency at least, so you can get used to the patterns. After all, each enemy has their own fighting style, and not to mention, if there are multiple enemies at once, their fighting styles are augmented. So before I exit the last part of this dungeon, or enter the last part of the first zone, I'm going to be resting up at the inn. Or rather, the boat. Maybe in the final game we'll have in-dungeon resting points, but those will cost ingredients. Or money, or whatever the monetary units are in this game. In fact, let me show it right now. Here are all the items we've been collecting. Over on the top we have the key items or quest items, which are the librarian scrolls. We have the skelly skulls, skelly strong arm, lizard wizard tails, gobble bomb dust, and gobble ears. Each of them act like kill counts for the 5 enemy types that we've been facing throughout our journey. But I would like to see more of the upgrades in the final game, because right now in the demo, the only upgrades I've been seeing are increasing potion slots, unlocking the librarian and the alchemist, and of course map completion, and, well, the shortcuts. Perhaps in the final game we'll get upgrades to our max HP, or number of specialty slots, as well as gauntlets, which were mentioned in the Kickstarter. Alright, let's progress onwards and end off this floor. But as we stand over here, look what we have here. We have the Minotaur that was referred to at the beginning by the Librarian, or rather the Skeletor. Before I fight the Minotaur, I'm going to be taking care of the Skelly companions first. Unfortunately, I hit the Minotaur instead. I really want to have a free space so I can take care of the Minotaur with ease, because I'm worried about its ramming attacks. Because they deal quite a bit of damage, especially as the distance ram. Okay, get ready. You're gonna try ramming into me, so I'm gonna throw the 100-inch punch. Deals a lot of damage and it actually stuns him out of the move. I can also just parry his move, just like so. I can actually parry all of the Minotaur's moves if I'm skilled enough, which is actually pretty nice. In fact, I've been able to stun all of the enemy's moves throughout this run. You just need to time it just right so you can actually properly stun him, though. Okay, 100-inch punch. That was a nice final blow. So the Skeletor has been defeated. And by doing so, we also got the Skeletor Shank. So it has enough meat to feed a family or a fight night, but I suppose this will be used for a gauntlet because it said Shank, so I suppose it'll be like spike gauntlets. Gauntlets seem to be the only thing that Fight Night can really wield as a weapon. All the other weapons get destroyed, of course. Before I progress onwards, I'm gonna go quickly rest up at the end and see what's over there. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna consume a Hardy Potion and move onwards. I will be ending off this part very soon. I just want to see what the next floors are. Okay, the deserted desert tombs. I suppose we will be traveling between floor 2 and 3 repeatedly, so we can actually, because of puzzles and whatnot. So this is a desert area. Oh, wow. Okay, as we walk into those totems, that's a new thing, we get shunted into the floor below. And we have a new enemy type, unjust. Or mummies, or mimmies. Oh, nice! It seems that each zone has its own battle team. And with 8 zones, it'll add a lot more variety. In fact, that was one of my complaints of a lot of dungeon crawler RPGs, the fact that the battle team was usually kept throughout the journey. And we got some mummy bandages, I suppose. It's not listed here for some reason. Oh, there it is. Yeah, mummy wrap. Healing properties, so I suppose this will be used for upgrades. As I was saying, a lot of dungeon crawler RPGs, especially retro ones, they have the annoying trend of, or because of memory limitations, they have it so that the boss team as well as any regular battle teams are repeated over and over, which makes them kind of a... The initial teams are pretty nice, but over time they get kind of annoying to go through. But this one varies it up, so that's pretty nice. And considering that we'll have 8 zones, I suppose we'll have at least 8 battle teams as well as 8 boss teams or something. And we have 3 enemy types, Mimimancers, which I think summon all these Mimis. Okay, keeps summoning them back from the dead. That's wonderful. So you need to keep rushing forward. And stun lock it. I also do like all the cartoony expressions that enemies have as we keep punching them down to the ground. But I do like how each environment has its own unique challenges. Because in the first zone we had all those waterfalls that we had to use the punch blocks in order to destroy. But over here we have all these totems, or whatever those moais are, or whatever those statues are, where if we go in front of them, we're sent to the bottom floor. So there is variety in terms of the level obstacles and puzzles. And this leads back upwards. Also, another nice thing, oh, that looks like kind of like quicksand. Another nice thing is that this dungeon, oh yeah, I walked right into that one. Okay, as long as you walk right inside of all those statues, it sends us to the bottom floor. So it's kind of like a stealth mission of sorts, or staying out of sight mission. But I do like how, oh, okay, I see now what it meant. We still have these punch blocks, but instead of taking out waterfalls, we need to punch down these blocks in order to progress through the area and get by unscathed. Neat! This demo has only 2 zones, the previous waterfall aqueduct and this desert, and we have 2 bosses, but I'll be ending off this part soon enough. Oh, and this is quicksand, figures. So we can't progress towards, we can't go over this, unfortunately. We'll need to find a different way. I suppose we have to get through all these statues. Ah, yes, that's what the X signs mean. We can't progress towards here, we need to take a different route. But we do actually have one. We just need to get on top of these blocks, of course. Oh, we need to access it from the bottom and get it behind it. I see, because I fell off at the bottom. But well, I spent over 35 minutes on this demo, so I think this is a nice time to end off this Let's Try. If I were to say one thing, I would like to say that the game is, well, even though it's a little bit rough in terms of how the presentation can be, I still find it to be quite fun, the base game. Dungeon exploration is varied, although it can get a little bit monotonous over time. Because with the first zone, we have all those waterfalls with the punch blocks which we can punch in order to, well, activate them. And in the desert, we have those statues which we have to avoid, otherwise it sends us to the bottom floor, as well as the quicksand that we have to avoid somehow. And of course we have all those upgrades we can get, like the librarian, increasing number of potion slots, new potions, as well as, well, of course, the upgrades that we'll eventually be able to get, like for example gauntlets and I suppose max HP and max number of specialties. Not to mention we can unlock new specialties along the way. I suppose the ingredients will be utilized in order to do that. Like for example, I really think that in the final game, the Mimi wrap will be used for a certain potion type. It's because it says it has some healing properties. I just wanted to check and see if it was actually implemented. And I suppose stuff like the boss items will be used for the gauntlets. I do wish there was a stat screen so we could actually see Fight Knight's stats and upgrade or at least change his playstyles. Because it was mentioned in the Kickstarter pledge that each gauntlet will change up, well, the different combinations of gauntlets and specialties will change up how Fight Knight's battle style will be. So I suppose there will be some battle styles where you need to be a lot more in your face and you'll be able to tank a lot more enemy blows. Others will focus a lot more on parrying and counterattacks, other ones guarding, and other ones more on hit and run tactics and dodging. But of course that all remains to be seen in the final game, because this game, at least this demo, is quite limited compared to what the final promises will be. And the main meat, or the main thing I like about this game, is the brawling action. It's really cathartic and very visceral to fight all of these enemies and quickly switch between lanes, using specialties, combos, parries, dodges, in order to whittle down all the enemies. And the boss fight against the Minotaur, or rather Skeletor, was pretty enjoyable to do. I would like to see what the boss of the second zone would be, probably in my own time. The only thing is though, well, the brawling action breaks up the monotony of the dungeon crawling, and I do like how each of the dungeon crawling areas have their own teams. In fact, each floor has their own team, slightly remixed for each zone. And I do really like how each of the zones has their own battle team. It makes it so that it solves the problem of a lot of dungeon crawlers which have the same battle team for every zone. I wonder if the boss battle teams will also vary between zones. That'll be nice to know. But even then, I would think this game would be better in short spurts, where you complete one zone, or at least a few floors, one or two zones, and then take a break, because otherwise even the brawling action can get a little bit monotonous. But I don't know how to expect the future parts of the game. It may get a lot more complicated and get a lot more involved with more lanes, more enemy varieties, and perhaps more creative puzzle solving. Maybe even more special attacks you can have at once, because I think you'll be able to unlock more specialty slots at once. So yeah, there remains to be seen how well this game will be able to scale in long term, because right now I feel that this game will be better in short to medium bursts rather than long term bursts. But otherwise, I really like how this game took an uncommon combination or hybridation. A first-person dungeon crawler and brawling. In fact, we don't have that many first-person brawlers in the first place. The only one I recently played was Gone with the Demon, but that takes a more Soulsborne-like approach, whereas this game takes a much more arcade game style. But overall, I really enjoyed playing through this demo, and I wish the best of luck to Sourcerobe with creating the final game. I would love to play the final version of this title, and see how it progresses and face the final bosses, unlock new challenges, and of course fight the various kinds of enemies in different party configurations, and punching them down with a flurry of blows. So 2 thumbs up for me. Well then, thanks for watching and have a nice day. Toodles!